Hello everybody, I'm Sarah and I'm a recorder player. I'm going to talk about something I have never covered on Team Recorder before. Can you believe it? The missing link between the pure polyphonic lines of the Renaissance and the elaborate solistic extravagance of the Baroque. This is the early Baroque. That name's a bit anticlimactic. This is the 17th century. To illustrate the music of this very special niche, I'm lucky to be testing the new pre-baroque recorders developed by Erik, Jahn and Sophie Schmid. So what is 17th century music like? These fascinating compositions are somewhere between the Renaissance and the High Baroque. You see these typical melodic shapes from Renaissance forms such as the ricercata, the fantasia, the canzona, remember that one, but within the solo and accompaniment setting of the later Baroque form. They are full of character and they provide a perfect snapshot of the transition between two musical worlds, a metamorphosis in progress. Ooh, can you tell I'm excited? Let's give it some context. We're coming out of the Renaissance, and here I'm talking about European music of the 15th and 16th centuries. The Renaissance is known for its polyphony, different voices weaving in and out of one another, with each voice having equal importance. Instruments and singers were played together in groups called consorts, and the emphasis here was on blending together seamlessly. And let's fast forward to the High Baroque in the 18th century. We've got composers we know and love like Bach, Vivaldi, Telemann, Handel, Baroque literally means weird, the harmonies are crunchy, and we've moved away from this consort setting to a soloist with a basso continuo accompaniment. The role of the recorder player here is totally different. Rather than blending in as a part of the whole, we're standing at the forefront as a soloist, showing off virtuosity through elaborate ornamentation and improvisation. And you have the sonata, a musical form of different movements, often alternating fast and slow to show off different moods and techniques. So how did we get there? Let's not forget that these changes took the better part of 150 years. The first signs we see were from the north of Italy, originating from an influential group of artists and intellectuals known as the Florentine Camerata in Firenze, and then this trickled upward throughout Europe, probably reaching England last. So they were really into the music of the ancient Greeks, and they sought a return to its pure forms and its monody, a single melodic line that they thought could best express drama with clarity. They didn't like all of this frilly business. A very important landmark was Caccini's book from 1601, Le Nuovo Musique, New Music, featuring many songs with a single melodic line and accompaniment. Now, Renaissance music was always improvised upon, but Caccini composed the ornaments in, keeping the clarity of the musical line where he wanted it. This book had a massive influence, and it began to set the scene for Baroque music. Now, wait, I'm going to stop here with the history lesson. To say Caccini single-handedly began Baroque music with one book is too much of a sweeping generalization, even for me. So now I'm going to focus in on the recorders used and the music played and what that means for us. The changing music influenced the development of the instruments, and the developing instruments influenced the music composed for it. It was a symbiosis. Is that a word? Symbiosis. It's a word! Renaissance recorders such as this have a wide bore which gives a really broad sound, but that results in a smaller range. They sound a bit like this. They're often in one part like this, or maybe two. And then our Baroque recorders are what today's instruments are modelled on. It has a much thinner conical bore, which gives a much higher range but a narrower sound. They often, but not always, have double holes at the bottom to aid with those chromatics, and this one comes in 3 pieces. And these early Baroque, pre-Baroque recorders by Erik, Jahn and Sophie Schmid are somewhere in between. These are handmade recorders with that broad sound of the Renaissance, yet the chromatic versatility and range of a Baroque recorder. You can see it's quite a wide bore, still with that full sound. But the full range of a Baroque recorder. And as we're going to see, we will need this for the 17th century repertoire. So on these, you could conceivably play Renaissance music or a Vivaldi concerto. On these, you can even play the high C sharp without your knee. Another maker building these so-called transitional recorders is Stephan Blezinger. This is my transitional G alto, which is perfect for playing Van Eyck. Sorry, I'll be serious. You also see the so-called Ganassi recorders. These are modern reconstructions designed according to the fingering charts in Ganassi's 1585 book La Fontana. There's a lot of choice of which recorders you want to play the 17th century music on. You can absolutely play it on your modern recorder at home. You don't have to have a specialist pipe. Let's have a look at some of the music, shall we? I open my score and I see my 4-year-old got there first. First up is Castello from 1629. His Sonata Seconda is the most popular one for a good reason. I'm going to play it on this pre-Baroque recorder in 4/15. All of these runs of scales immediately remind me of the Renaissance ricercare, a musical form literally meaning searching, and it would go up and down and up and down through all kinds of music. The piece has 10 or 11 tempo markings alternating back and forth between allegro and adagio, some of the sections even lasting 2 bars before switching back again. We have rhythmic dance sections, we have more free sections. It's the exploratory style of a fantasia moving towards sonata form. So one thing strikes me from the very beginning, how improvised it all should sound. I tried to play it along with a recorded accompaniment and it was almost impossible. The accompanist really has to follow you. For example, this is all on one chord. New chord. I think it's safe to say my role is that of a soloist. Castello's endings are always brilliantly weird. We often get this motif of da-dun, da-dun. And that last trill is interesting. It's a written out single note trill. It's typical in earlier music, but here we see it written out. The composers are starting to put all of this improvisation fast on paper. Now, these sonatas weren't written with a specific solo instrument in mind. They could have been for the cornetto, the recorder, the violin. Looking at the range, it goes right up to that top C. So we need a recorder like this, but also down to the bottom G. That is violin writing right there. And just listen to this next section, it's my favourite, with these beautiful repeated notes. I think that is classic string writing. The second piece I'd like to share is Angelo Notari's Canzona Passaggiata. I'm going to play this on a sopranino because why not? A canzona refers to an instrumental piece of the 16th or 17th century, which is what this is, and they often open with a recognisable fanfare-like motif. Almost cliches of the Renaissance being put into a more baroque form. So published in England, this canzona actually includes a simple and an ornamented version, so we can see how the composers would have wanted their music to be ornamented. In his publication, Notari differentiates between a gruppo, a trill with 2 notes, like in the Baroque, and a trillo, a trill on 1 note. Remember the ending of the Castello? We see a similar structure to the Castello, alternating fast and slow, with a dance-like tripla section that we often see in earlier Renaissance polyphonic music. And the demanding virtuosity of this piece does not let up. We are getting into soloist territory. So many notes. I should also say these pieces include slow sections. These slow sections were intended for performers to ornament them, to display their imagination and virtuosity, but at pretty much every point in history, composers have lamented the self-indulgence of performers who do way too much in their tasteless, baseless finger wiggling, which brings me to the thought that maybe that's the reason why the composers started writing their ornaments out, to stop people doing too much. Yes. You know when you put something together in your head as you're filming the video? Maybe the performers of the 17th century were just too wild. Should we move on to some Fontana? I love Fontana's Sonata Terza. It's actually quite stately and moderate. I think it's quite conservative. This piece was composed much later than the Castello, but I don't know, it feels earlier. For a start, we have these canzona-like motifs throughout the opening, and then this typical. The cool thing about this is it's in a mirror form. It opens and closes with this fanfare section. Next in the sandwich is a triplet dance section, and then a slow, fast in the middle. Again, the slow section would be heavily ornamented. The fast section has lots of notes, display the performer's virtuosity, until the composers get cross again. Every time there's a I always think of strings. Fontana's not saying that much that we've not seen already, so I'm going to move on to my fourth and final piece, which is Cima. This is the sonata in D, and I love it so much. It's actually the earliest work I'm talking about today, from 1610, and it represents some of the first known solo plus accompaniment music of this style. I like to indulge myself by playing it on the tenor. Has this beautiful calm opening, but later we see those canzona motifs popping up again. Ba, 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 ba. Why was I drawn to this? It's full of chromaticism. In this later section we have these creeping chromatic scales. how modern, we might say. But no, chromatics were actually a staple of the Renaissance. A really nice example is Sweelinck's Fantasia Chromatica, which is a chromatic party on the organ. Here is a little video of me playing it with a microtonal organ in a children's music theatre performance, because why not? Wow, we've heard a lot of music now. I hope you can see why I love 17th century music so much and why it's so special. It has all of these traits carried over from the Renaissance, yet it's heading towards Baroque music, and ultimately it's really its own thing. Some other composer names that are good are Frescobaldi or Merula or Tartini. Try it for yourself. It fits beautifully on the recorder and you can already find a lot on IMSLP. And it has been an absolute joy to play this repertoire on Erik and Sophie's pre-baroque recorders. I'm going to do a full testing playthrough over on my Patreon, so check that out. All information down in the description. That's it for today. As always, you can subscribe to my channel by clicking on my face down here in the corner. Over here's the Team Recorder Patreon, where you can support the channel, and here's some more videos. Thanks for watching and have a great day. Bye!